Claudia, thank you for being here. Let me get one of these. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. What's happening to our Los Angeles? Why are we having so many issues and difficulties? Homeless, police. I mean, the list. It's dirty. It's unorganized. Crime's up. What's happening?
It's our local politicians. As you could see, our city is just in shambles. For example, Mayor Garcetti, he's actually just, he's wishing for people to, get a new mayor that's going to do the right thing and, to decide wisely. And it's like, he's still in office. How can he be, just dismissive of the city? And the same thing with our politicians. All the other ones are incumbents. For example, live in Northeast Los Angeles. We have Gil Cedillo. So you know where that's going with what's happening in our city council.
Fill us in, because there's a lot of people that listen to this show that I know they want to know more, but they feel like they don't know enough, so they kind of stay out of it. Like, what is happening?
Well, for example, they caught him with Nuri Martinez and then also Kevin De Leon. They had some kind of recording that they've had for the past year where they were racial, words that were spoken and other issues that were discussed that were just... That
was the Middle Eastern or Armenian comments?
It's about the child for Mitchell Farrell, I believe it was. And they were just talking about... I'm sorry, not Mitchell Farrell. Can't remember one of the other council members. He had a black child, and they were just saying, really awful things about him.
Things.
Yes, very racial content. And so now they're trying to recall Kevin De Leon, and Gil Cedillo is almost out of there. So we have another person that's coming in. Her name is Eunice Hernandez. She won the June primary, and she's actually for removing our police. She says she's an abolitionist, and so she doesn't like the police, and she wants to bring more people to help the homeless and people that have crime or background for like more of a mental health. I mean, that's great and all, that we do need that definitely, but we also do need our police, to look over our city. Everything's going pretty bad right now as far as the crime. George Gascon has, made it so up to people could steal up to $950 and, they will not face any penalties unless, they get caught. But even then, it's kind of just in and out of the jails, so that's why everything is just so rampant in our city of Los Angeles. So we need to get more law and order. And then also, our politicians need to be held accountable for their local neighborhoods and communities, because they're the ones that are allowing this. They're also trying to remove Alex Villanueva, our sheriff. They made it so they can get him out of there in the next in this election. So it's like one thing after the other, and then it's just, it's affecting our city, our neighborhood, our safety for our civilians in our areas.
I know this question is a little complex, but, just if we were to pick one or the other, what do you think is the bigger issue? Do you think it's the policing issue, or do you think it's the penalties that people are getting a slap in the hand? They get booked and then they get let go.
Well, I think it is both, because also
it goes hand in hand, obviously.
Yes, exactly. And then also when the police are coming, you have to remember we have some groups that are activists, and they're, making it so these police officers are, get sued, and they are, are actually making it so they jeopardize their pensions, getting them sued and, individually. For police officers. And then also, like you said, they're not getting any penalized or facing any kind of consequences for, their actions.
Yeah, it's such crazy times. I'm thinking about, like, when did this all change, where the people trying to help you are the ones that get in trouble,
Right.
and you see this you see this everywhere. You see this in schools. You see professors teaching, and they say something that's offensive, and all of a sudden they're being disciplined, they're being fired, they're being, suspended, and it's absolutely terrible. Like, we're rewarding the bad people, and we're getting mad at the good people.
Right. As far as the schools, I my understanding is also the unions, the teachers union. For example, I've been working a lot with the teachers for, for them when they had the schools closed because a lot of the children were suffering. And, all of the other schools in the nation were pretty much open except for California, and especially here in Los Angeles. So it's the unions that were, driving, control as far as like when to open or when not to open. I mean, a lot of children have suffered, and you would see even my child, I mean, I would see him on Zoom, and he would be, not be interested, and he's IEP. A lot of parents have IEP students, so that's something where they need that special attention, or extra help. But because, for example, when the schools were closed, a lot of children suffered, and also the teachers union, again, they controlled whether they were going to open it or not. And also another thing back to for security at schools, they took out the police because of defund the police, and now there is a lot of fights at school. For example, I went to John Marshall High School here in Los Feliz, and the students, apparently they did a walkout not too long ago because there was a stabbing in the school, and the kids on their own, they just all went ahead and they just walked out because they say they don't feel safe. And it goes back to defunding the police, and the unions were pushing it like, we don't want the police in the schools, we don't want them, it's not good for us, and we don't need them in our campuses.
They're
and
intimidating.
Yes, exactly. And looking at the consequences that it's caused for our kids, to have to walk out of school and voice their opinion, but it goes back to also some of the students, in my opinion, just they're so easy, to let them know, this is good, this is bad. And then, they were saying some of the students, we know that they were also about defunding the police, but, it's unfortunate because now look at what's happening in our schools and our campuses.
Can you explain to me what defunding the police means? Does that mean they're firing people? Does that mean they're cutting their equipment? Does that mean they're not getting training? Does that mean, I'm sure it means all that, but like, what is their agenda of, defund the police? What are they expecting from that? And what is it actually doing?
Right. My understanding is just trying to get, less funding for the police. And then also in Los Angeles, for example, they've had the lowest rate of police, trying to come into the department because, who
wants to be a police officer?
Yes, exactly. Because, it's essentially, they're not getting paid enough for what they're doing. They are putting their lives in risk, trying to save our communities and just, protect our civilians and whatnot. But, it's just trying to get rid of them for whatever reason. I mean, I do understand that there's good cops or bad cops, but, that goes across the board with any kind of, division you're working on, and so right now it's like with all this happening, and again, we do have activists in our cities that are, very vocal about not wanting them. So, there is people that have had those consequences with the police, perhaps criminal or whatnot, but, we do have to have them for people in our communities that do need them because I'll tell you something also. For example, in the Lincoln Heights area, there was 2 young boys that were shot at a carnival not too long ago.
That was the Boys and Girls Club event,
yes,
right?
Exactly. And it was unfortunate because now the community is saying, where was the police? Why weren't they here? And it's like, there are so many police that actually aren't working right now. They, they have their medical reasons as well. And again, not a lot of people are coming in to try to be in the police department. So it's like there are also being, not as many police officers that can respond to these calls.
Yeah, that makes sense because the salary was kind of an incentive to hire and promote people because there was like startup salary and, bonus this and after the first year make that. And you're right, they're not promoting that anymore. And what other way would you, promote to hire police? It's got to be money if you're going to risk your life and,
right. Right, exactly. And then again, just, having to go into these kind of, situations where people are just like, get out of here, it's like, who wants to do that kind of job? But again, I do know, for example, our law enforcement, a lot of them have been put on leave for medical reasons for, the vaccines and whatnot. So there is a shortage with that as well. So, we need to get some of these people back into their jobs. We do have other candidates, for example, Michael McMahon, who's running for office as well. And, we need these people to be back into their positions in law enforcement and also first responders and firemen.
Yeah, it's super important.
Yes.
It's super important. On the school system, there's a lot of changes with how they're controlling or manipulating or threatening parents on how to raise their kids. One of them is we briefly touched base on it. The documentary on the Daily Wire with Matt Walsh, I believe.
Right.
What is a woman?
Yes.
And they're pretty much promoting sex, genders, how many genders. It's okay feeling different from your gender. If you feel like the opposite gender, they're offering hormone blockers,
Yes.
testosterone, against the parents' will.
Right.
That's happening in LA right now.
Yes, in LAUSD and throughout California, you have to understand that there's a senator. His name is Scott Wiener, and he's the one that's introducing these because we have to make sure that if children that have that feeling, that they should be able to have that choice. But it's a very small percentage, and even with that, they're trying to remove the parental rights for that decision. They want them to.
So it hasn't passed yet, but they're trying.
No, I believe it has. It already has passed, and
So what has passed? Exactly what is it?
The bill, I'm not sure the number exactly, but it's the bill where if children feel that they're a certain, different gender, that if the parent is not in the same page with the school system, that they can remove them from their parents. And then also another thing is that if they have, let's say, a shared custody of a different state, and let's say the child is in another state and perhaps, the parent feels like, he or she has this, feelings of, boy or girl, like California, Gavin Newsom already has signed it into law, I believe it'll be January, where they will be able to remove that child without any questions asked because, they want to make sure that the child is able to transition if he wants, and they'll just
they favor the parent that's for it.
Exactly. And and myself, I think it should be both parents, whatever decision it is that they want to make for their child, but it shouldn't be one or the other because there is cases where we don't know for sure if it's the child or the parent that's using it against another parent or whatnot.
Which is another manipulation, correct?
Yes, exactly. And it could be anything, but again, it should be both parents. I've had that discussion with many parents, where that's happened in different issues. For example, for the vaccines or whatnot, for certain issues, it's like, it should be both parents, not just one. But want to make sure.
I agree.
Yes.
But what do you do when one parent says yes and one parent says no? And how old of children are we talking about? As young as?
I think it just as long as that they have shared custody, it doesn't matter.
So 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. A 7-year-old child says, "I want to be."
Well, there's apparently therapists that have said, the child knows that when they're little, that if they look at a certain color, like, this is what he actually meant or she meant to be, And again, there's been issues where even as an adult, you go through therapy to make sure that you want to transition. So just now that they're changing it for small children, they don't know, one thing from another. Like you can't even go.
At all.
Yeah, you can't even go buy alcohol. You
can't even read a book.
Yes, exactly. Or
you
buy
can't even
cigarettes.
do math. No. A cigarettes, alcohol.
Yes.
Buy a property, get credit. That's even more extreme. But you can't even read the difference of boy or girl because this becomes like it's becoming like a social status.
Right.
Where like 2-3 people are like, oh, hey, I feel like X, and I think X is a gender. What's hilarious, but I feel like blah blah blah. And then they're oh yeah, me too, and then they group up and it becomes a social thing, and it's like, wait a minute, but do they really understand? And in that documentary, it showed people that have done the surgery to cross over, and how much regret they had with it later. And it's weird because if you talk about this, people attack you in such a way of like, hey, you don't understand, and then you're a piece of garbage.
Right.
You can't talk like that, and they're for this agenda, but it's so unfair. A child has no idea what he wants. They believe in Santa Claus. They believe in the Easter Bunny. They believe in anything you put in front of them. Like it's like if we work this problem backwards. The real problem we're having with the educational system is that nobody's getting educated. Right. Nobody's being educated. We're just pushing more rules. We're trying to take more control, and we're trying to confuse our youth. But there's no education. Our reading stats are down. Our math stats are down. Our people are graduating high school and they don't know how to read.
Right.
Like, why doesn't the education system work on education and leave sex and leave gender and leave transitioning outside of the school? Why can't they just say, you know what, your child brought this up, you need to go see a doctor or a therapist, the end.
Right.
But in school, you can't do that.
Exactly.
I don't know if it was on a podcast or if it was on that same documentary. There was a girl in San Francisco that identified as a furry or an animal, right. and they installed a
cat litter.
A litter box
yes.
in one of the girls' bathroom stalls, yes. and the school did it.
Yes, exactly. And that's just the thing. It's just like it goes back to, you know, the educators and, you know, the unions as well. I believe it's California Education Board of Education is the ones that are pushing this as well. And so that's where we're the parents, we need to, you know, step in and speak up. But I don't know if you're aware, but we're also, the parents are being targeted where they're saying that we're domestic terrorists. And this is a fact. So there's the parents where they're actually being, you know, bullied and being, you know, the teachers are reporting them to the FBI. And it's actually a task force that the FBI has for parents that are speaking up. And we have
That's
that right.
disgusting.
We have that right, you know, and then not only that, but also for, you know, critical race theory. That's nothing that has to do with, you know, helping us as far as like, you know, evolving and forward. You know, we don't need to go back to like, oh, you know, we're deprived. Like myself, you know, I'm Mexicana. You know, I've never honestly have thought of myself like I'm deprived. Like I worked hard. I'm a single mom, you know, I've always had good jobs. You know, I've had great jobs, you know, through my work education as well. And, you know, it's just having this kind of illusion that, you know, we have to keep going back to those issues. And the children are, you know, they're learning this and picking this up. So that's why we have the, you know, these other groups where like, you know, BLM and whatnot, you know, we know what they're really for. I mean, that none of that money has gone.
Profit.
That money has gone back to our, you know, Black communities or communities of color, you know, and I hate to see, you know, what they're doing with this money exactly. So, you know, it's like we need to focus on the education, you know, our academics and arts instead of, you know, this ideology about transgenderism and, you know, also for, you know, critical race theory that's just, you know, confusing children, you know, further instead of focusing on their education. Again, you know, California education is just really bad and the children are lacking that, you know,
the basics.
Yes, exactly. And they're suffering in their grades, you know, and it's just terrible. Like you said, you know, they're graduating high school and I believe they can't even hold them back if they're not doing well or even if it's.
Well, they brought down.
Yes.
They brought down the percentage of a grade, I think. So now yes. I think like an F. Oh, I just heard this recently. The Dr. Phil was talking about this. He says like to get an F, you have to score under 25%. Right. To get a D, you have to score like anything over 25% is a D, and right. you can pass the grade with a D. Right. Where a D for us was like a 65 or something. Yes. Or that was like the D minus, or I think that was an F. Right. Like 65. Now they brought it down to 25. Right. So they're instead of encouraging and being stricter on teaching, they're just making it easier for people to pass. Hence, this is why we have people that graduate and they don't know how to read. There's a guy on Instagram, this is kind of random, but there's a guy on Instagram, he just goes around and asks the most basic questions to kids in New York. Have you seen it?
I'm not certain, no.
He just walks up to people and he goes, hey, where was in what country was the Vietnam War? Oh, okay. And people are like, Germany? Like they can't answer, you know, yes. What's 75 plus 25? They can't answer these questions. And right. he makes these videos daily and you're just like, wow, this is our youth. Like, yes. Where are we going? And not only is this our youth, but look at how, you know, the kind of people that are in power, look how they're acting, putting in these laws, trying to, you know, control people's kids, trying to defund the police, trying to create, you know, these, you know, BLMs, these systems and stuff, and not help the community and encourage people to burn down properties and take down statues. And like it's almost a joke. Like,
yes, and it's a terrible thing that's, you know, happening in our youth, like you said. And then also back to the parental rights, you know, it does go back to our senators and our assembly members. For example, they are removing the parental rights. There was a bill, I believe it was AB 1940, and the the governor vetoed it. So what it was going to be was for children to be able to do any medical procedures or in their schools, and for it to be done without parental consent. And again, this had already passed, and for whatever reason, the governor vetoed it. He's passing it to a local legislation, and that's where I come in as a senator and assembly member. That's why we need to get us into the office, because we're the ones that are making the laws. So people that say, oh, we don't know what's happening. Again, that's why you have to vote, and it's very important. And this is why this is such an important issue for myself. I mean, I've been very active for quite a while with, opening up the schools, for example, and also calling our assembly and senators. And not a lot of people know this, but even when I'm right now canvassing, I'm telling, parents, of course, I'm for, public safety and also for less taxes, because again, we also vote for this. So for your gas, for example, we have Kevin Kiley, and he's assembly member. He brought it to the floor for them to lower the gas. And our most of our assembly members, they all voted against it. And it's like, we're all complaining about the gas. But again, this is who's voting for it. It's our assembly and senators.
How do they vote against it? Why would they vote
against it? They bring
it
on the floor. They just, it's very...
No, I know, but
yes.
who in their right mind votes against it? Like, are they profiting?
Right.
Are they working with the companies and they're just like, nah, we're making a cut from this?
I just think that they're just yes men, and they're just voting for whoever's telling them to, because obviously, like our assembly members, like myself, I have Wendy Carrillo, I'm in Los Angeles area, Northeast Los Angeles. How isn't someone Northeast Los Angeles? We have a lot of low income families there, myself included, middle class. I mean, even middle class, we can't afford it,
No.
It's difficult. We need that money for our groceries, for our children. We can't even go out to movies or whatnot, because, we have a tight budget, because, our gas, this, you're here in your area, it's affecting all of us. But for whatever reason, they think it's okay, and they just vote against it. They're like, no, we don't need to lower prices,
Because again, most people know it, the common sense, but when you raise gas prices, it's not just gas. You're raising oil prices. You're raising
our groceries go up.
Exactly. You're raising, everything.
It affects everything.
Goes up.
Exactly.
All businesses, delivery, UPS, FedEx.
Yes.
I ship a lot of merchandise and stuff.
Right.
A few months ago, there was a big hike. It was almost double for me to ship out product to clients.
Right.
And I was offering free shipping, and I was like, not anymore.
Exactly. Right.
Not anymore. Guess what? Who's paying for this? And
Yes.
then guess what? I charge shipping now, and then sales drop. And it's like, oh, now I'm a struggling business. Saying,
Yes.
hey, what's going on? I used to sell X amount, and
Right.
not the gender. I'm kidding. I don't know if that's an extra. But, now I sell X, and now this doesn't equal this. And now I'm losing money because, gas prices go up.
Exactly. Even your local restaurant, because I'm big about supporting local businesses, and even going out for dinner, it's like you see the prices, they keep changing them, they literally manually changing them. And it's like, going by myself or whatnot. And it's like, wait, it's like $20 just for myself, and it affects all of our businesses, local businesses. So again, having your local legislation, we have that power where we can, be activists for our own communities, and then, speak up and say, we can't have this. I mean, you go to different counties, you notice that it's not as expensive, and again, it's your local government that's pushing and, pushing for those lower prices and whatnot, and speaking up for those communities. So it makes an impact.
It's important. It's important because you could see the difference as you drive to different counties.
Yes.
Like just a simple example. I remember during the pandemic, I went to a motorcycle meeting
Yes.
in Orange County, and when I was done, I passed by the In-N-Out, and nobody was wearing a mask.
Yes.
And I'm like, it was like, wait, what? You guys haven't been wearing masks this whole time? They're like,
Right.
no, what mask? What do you need a mask for?
Right.
And it's just, again, that's just who you vote for and how it affects everything.
Right.
Why do you think people hesitate to vote? And why do you think people think their vote doesn't count?
Well, a lot of people too, they think that it's not going to make a difference. I hear that all the time, but it does. And, and the same thing with right now with everybody, going back to work, and, some of the businesses have opened. So people are going into the office and they think everything's okay. Like my area where I'm at, people just, they're surprised. There's even any, voting going on, or an election. So I do tell them, that I'm running, and at least, let them know about the gas prices if they think everything's okay. And then like, oh yeah, you're right, and they need to understand that that's what helps with, when you vote, you have to make sure and elect your local assembly, senators, Congress. They're the ones that are over there in their state Senate that are making these these laws, and also the changes that affect all of our communities. And that's why you need to vote, because if you don't, they're essentially, they're already doing it. Our incumbents, they're
Right.
doing anything that they want. So it's like, for example, I saw again our assembly member, they're in all these local events, and they're taking pictures, and everybody's just admiring them, and they're like, oh, they're great people. Like, you don't understand what they're doing. They're taking away your rights. They're closing down your businesses, and these are the people that are backing, into the election that they want you to vote them back in. So a lot of people need to understand that and make the right decision for your candidates that are running, especially your local candidates.
No, 100%. The other thing is I don't understand how they get away with confusing people on like things of like vote yes on no. You're like,
Right.
what? Like and
Like
then
a
people,
double speech.
yeah, like a double speech, or vote yes on yes, because this person did this, and it's like they say, vote no on green van because the van's green, but they don't tell you what's inside the van, and they don't see they don't. There's a bunch of other stuff they pack in there,
Yes.
and people don't know. How do they get away with? How is it legal to manipulate the public in that way?
Well, I think
And
what
how
it
come
is-
nobody's called it out?
Yeah, I think what it is because, like you said, they put a lot of other issues into these bills that people don't understand what's actually behind them. There's a bill right now. I'm sorry, I don't know the name, the number offhand, but it's
confusing,
It's-
and you do this. Let
Yes.
alone imagine people that are like,
right.
I don't know which one to vote. But
Yes, there's a bill. It's 20 something. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But that bill is actually, it says on there that it's for arts, for schools, for kids, but it's a very, very small percentage. But behind it, it's other, we don't know where that other money is going. So you have to make sure and be careful. So a lot of bills, especially if it's bonds, if they're asking you for money, you have to know that they're just more taxes. And do you really want to keep voting for more taxes? I mean, for example, HHH, a lot of people voted for it and it passed. And look, our homeless situation at the moment, it hasn't benefited anybody. And the
Isn't
governor,
that $1 billion that goes to the homeless?
it's supposed to, and it was for housing. It was for housing, and that's we see that there's a lot of homeless people. It hasn't helped anyone, so we don't know where all this money is going. So again,
Well, aren't salaries being reported that people are making like $450,000 a year, and
right?
plus bonuses and plus this?
Yes, exactly. And
How
even,
is that not illegal? Like that's so crazy.
yes, and I believe it's also they're spending 80,000 plus per homeless person, and look how is that reflective of
How's it working out?
Yes, but it's been put in place already, and again, we have so many homeless. It's like,
It's
how
only
is
getting
it-
worse.
How is it that it's helping them,
Yeah.
but they have these bills and they're spending this much money on each particular homeless person, and obviously they're not getting that help. So you really have to make sure and understand that it's very important to vote, and we have to stop it.
Let's talk about your involvement with the community, your accomplishments, what you're proud of, and more about who you are and why you're running and what changes you want to make.
Sure. So myself, I've always been very active in my community, but not only my community, other cities as well. I'll see if I'm driving or whatnot in a lot of areas that I'm very familiar with, or just that I drive through a lot and I see certain issues, I'll just go ahead and report it to our city. For example, our roads, and throughout the city, you drive everywhere and you see certain areas and you see it and you report it. So that's something that I've been doing a lot, and also our lighting and even our highways and local issues, also crime and then also blight. So I've always been active, being a homeowner, especially, with my children. I've always gone through our community neighborhood council meetings and voice my opinion about, complain. I would actually complain and be like, okay, this is happening here. You guys haven't done anything, need to take care of it. You have your public comments. So, of course, I listened to it and that's it. And nothing happened, so that's when I took it upon myself and I started reporting all of this to the city. And I follow up, and even with our council member, my council member at the time was Ed Reyes, and I work closely with his office, and and follow up with certain properties or issues, and certain public areas where there would be like a lot of crime or also just blight, a lot of trash and graffiti, and then just report it. And then also homeless. We had some issues locally. Actually, it came out in the news. For example, over in Placita del Vera, there's like a lot of homeless there, and I will report it to the local police department and also council member Gil Cedillo's office. And I was just follow up, and then also Alex Sheriff Villanueva, he also brought it up, and they were able to clean it. And just being that person that speaks up for our community, and they did bring it to the city council, and there was activists there that they were like very upset. And these are very active members till this day. And they're saying, why is it you're criminalizing homeless people? And it's like, to a certain degree, of course, we're going to help homeless people. But when there's children involved and it's near a school, it's like, how is that even an issue? It's like it's either the child that's still developing mentally and seeing this in the street in front of their schools or near their schools, where there's these grown-ups, that they've had their terrible, situations of life and their situation that they're in. Some of them obviously not on their own, housing and not whatnot, but, there is that resources, our homeless housing authorities, that they can help them, and get them out of there or just give them that resource, but that's something that also I was very active with that as well. And, just brought it to their attention, and now, they have cleaned it up. So that's some of the issues that I've been very involved with as well.
Yeah, the homeless one's humongous.
Yes, and again, just when it's around schools and children, that's something that we need to be more vocal.
Parks, yeah, schools, parks.
And yes, exactly, because that does affect. I mean, there have been parks, but like you've said, where they found needles in the sand, and it's like, how is it that the child's, for them to be able to play safely. And then there's someone that has a, drug issue or whatnot, that's not a problem, and we need to make sure that we have to take care of these issues,
Yeah, I do like, I have a 3.5-year-old. I do like that now some parks, the newer parks or the refurbished parks, they don't do sand anymore. They do that rubber mat kind of. And that's so much better because the sand, I mean, I found needles in the sand.
Right.
You're like, what? Like, this is at a park. What are you guys doing? It's so dangerous. So I like, I don't know who's in charge of that or who got that passed or who's doing that, but more of that.
It's a designer. Yes, exactly. I've noticed that too. But, back to what was happening, with our homeless and everything, it's like, that's something that we need to, take care of. For example,
I think that's the biggest problem we have in LA. Continue.
Yes,
Sorry
exactly.
About that.
No, exactly. But I've actually worked for a housing authority before, a housing where I would write the grants. So I know that the money is there. So it's a matter of transparency, and also I believe there's a process for every individual to go through. But I think they obviously this is an emergency, and they need to make sure to get this more of a. Our council members, need to take care of this. They have the field reps that take care of this, but it's just so overwhelming that it's hard for them, I guess, to follow up. But like you said, it's like it's everywhere, and it's something that we need to take care of as soon as possible. I think are the people that are running right now for the mayor race. That's what they're saying. If they go into office, that they'll make it an emergency, and it's like, why don't we do it now? With the mayor of our city.
Why ain't the current people? Yeah,
exactly. And that's what's it's an awful. It's almost embarrassing to see that's happening. But I don't know if you notice this trend. It's actually nationwide, so it's concerning to see where our country is going. So, but again, our local legislation and politicians is what it's important because the president doesn't have any authority what he can say or do. He runs all these executive orders, but he thinks that he's able to run that through our local legislation. But if the local legislators are the ones that are voting on it, that's where the problem is it's your local legislators. And again, these are the people that are running down, myself included. So we do have these incumbents that are yes men and yes women that are going with what administration is saying, or even our governor. Our governor cannot pass a law. It has to go through due process through our legislation. So that's where a lot of people don't know that there is a process. And, we do have that voice. The senators and assembly members, they're the ones that are ultimately the ones that are deciding. They're voting for all these terrible bills, that are happening right now.
The another topic that that I saw on your website that you're trying to help is small businesses.
Yes.
what is the biggest problem with small businesses, and what solutions do you see for small businesses?
Well, what happened is, with the closing during the pandemic, a lot of them were bullied to close their doors. Obviously we want to be safe, but, at some point we have to open. However, we did have the big stores opened, and how is it that they're any more important than the small mom and pops? Some of them were probably
That was a real thing where the
Yes.
big ones were allowed and the small ones weren't.
Yes, exactly. And even when they opened up without the mask, like some of the small businesses, they still couldn't open up their doors. So unfortunately, a lot of them closed their doors and they're struggling. They just never opened back up. So, we also do have all these terrible policies and taxations for our businesses. So I would really like it, if I were to get in there, to give these small businesses and even just regular businesses, that weren't the big the big, like Walmarts or Targets, that need that help, to stay in California. I mean, just recently, we've just learned how like so many businesses have left California. I mean, even like Tesla, and even Elon Musk, all these, offices have left California because it's so expensive here. So that's why we need to make sure to give them these tax breaks or incentives to stay in California. And I don't see how the governor does not see that, and he's very boastful about how great we're doing it. And I don't know where he's living or his head is at, but it's like, no, we're struggling, or we need to keep
We're
these
drowning.
businesses in California. Yes, exactly.
We're drowning. It's a terrible thing. The other thing that I've spoken to many businesses, business owners, developers, contractors. When did we get so many departments and approvals and licensings and these hurdles to build and develop? It seems like that wasn't here. I'll give you an example. I have a good friend of mine. He bought a house in Malibu, and there was a fire, and a quarter of his home was burnt.
Right.
The insurance wasn't going to cover it for whatever reason, because whatever.
Right.
The insurance wasn't going to cover it. He's going to pay for it. He's going to fix his home. He's going to do it. He's fine with that.
Wow.
It took him 2 years to do 5 months of construction because of the permits and the city and the
Right.
fire department and this department and the other department.
That's true.
And a lot of the developers that I'm talking to were like, this wasn't like this. Like you literally have to go through 5 people
Yes.
to get, an extension. You literally need to, convince this person and make time for that person and then make an appointment for this person to get, to change the door frame or something, or to
Right.
add a little to your house or to fix your home. Not
Right.
even add or change, just fix your home.
Right.
What can you do about that, or who does anything about that? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are in
Right.
this listening to this.
Exactly. I think that's more of a city issue. So that would be something that they would be more able to discuss, or, get our departments to be more of a streamline,
Right.
where myself is more of more of a statewide, I'm sorry, for our state, legislation, but that's something that'd be the city of issues. But yes, I understand that you do have to
Yeah,
jump
it's a
a
big
lot of
issue.
holes, loopholes and whatnot, but it's, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think, in my opinion, there's a lot of bureaucracy as well, but if I were to be able to attend or, discuss this, I mean, I would make it something where we make it easier, or not just easier, because we do want to make sure that these buildings are safe and, they are following the laws. But, I don't think, like you said, should be that many loopholes, loops, that you have to
It shouldn't
jump
be that
through.
I mean, there should be a system. I get it, but
Yeah,
it just seems like they
exactly.
just made like 5 other extra departments to profit more. That's just
Right.
what it seems, and delay things.
Exactly.
You mentioned you're a single mother,
Yes.
and this is crazy times. It's just yesterday, right at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., right across the street. I live right next by the CBS studios.
Yes.
Armed assault. There was 2 police cars, 1 ambulance, and 2 fire trucks.
Yes.
How do you protect yourself, and where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
I'm pro Second Amendment. To be quite honest, I just started about 2 years ago during the pandemic because, of all the riots, everything that was happening. I mean, there's a lot of crime everywhere, but I've actually experienced it myself, and also neighbors. One of my neighbors, she was assaulted on her way home, and this is in my neighborhood. And I was just seeing it everywhere. And so I just went ahead and started looking into firearms. So I went ahead and I, got the proper training. I actually did a couple of classes and, so I'm a very big supporter of Second Amendments. I think it's important, especially for women. I have several friends and I let them know, like, it's good to be, have one instead of not have one and need one, but it's important, especially being a single woman. And, right now with everything that's happening, just have that training, and it's important to be able to protect yourself if you need to.
Good. I agree. I believe we should have that right.
Yes.
And I believe training, I like as much training as possible.
Yes, exactly.
That QR code, where does that go? Where can people find you? Where can people support you and and follow you?
Sure. So that's my, the QR code is for my website, and my website is claudiaforsenatca.com, and it's the word for, again, claudiaforsenatca.com. And just go there. You can see what I'm about. And also, know that I'm actually a very big supporter for parental rights, because everything that's happening, a lot of parents don't know this, but you are losing your rights as parents. And, that bill that I told you, 1940, and that other one for transgender, for any, changes that child wants to make, if you don't decide with your child that it's the right decision for them, the school would decide for you. And, it's going to if in my opinion, it's going to get worse if people don't, wake up and see what is happening.
It's pretty bad, but if it gets worse.
And a lot of parents don't know this. And then also, for example, or even our independent workers, I wanted to mention this. There's another bill called AB 05, and that one is for example, truckers. There's about 70,000 truckers that are now illegally they will not be able to work in California any longer because they removed that right for independent truckers. So that will impact our food, our resources.
Explain that. So they're passing a law that if you drive a truck, an 18-wheeler, as an independent person,
yes,
you can't come into California?
People, they're already here. You're no longer will be able to work as an independent worker here in California. And that's because they passed this bill because they want them to be unionized, and the person that I'm running against, she's very much into unions. You can look in her social media. She has unionized California, and and this most likely will also affect small businesses. So this is where we're going. I mean, I know there's some businesses that are trying to unionize that are Starbucks, I believe, as well. That's the baristas, whatnot. And I'm sure they have their issues and their concerns. That's what they want to do. That's fine. But what about when it comes to the mom and pop? How are they going to be able to keep their doors open if their employees, they're not want to have to, pay their unions for, and it'll be mandatory. And again, this is where we're going, everyone. So you really need to wake up and know that, even though you have, your job right now, for those that do, because not some people are still struggling. I don't know if you know, but they've said that right now, California, we have the lowest, unemployment rate, so it's, in their opinion, everything's fine. But I think, in my opinion, it's because they're not reporting it because they've already run out of funds. I know a lot of people that aren't working.
Well, they're not reporting it because they're out of funds. They're not working. They're not reporting the people that ran out of benefits.
That's what I mean. Right, exactly. So again, it's because, it's people that think everything is okay and there's no need for us to vote. But this is, again, going to impact everybody if they're going to make everyone unionized in their small offices or their businesses, and that's another bill that's the incumbent that I'm running against that she voted for it to pass. So they're just voting for all these awful bills. And again, it's just going to get worse. So make sure and get out and vote. And, try to look for candidates for, businesses, public safety, and especially your children, because this is not going in a good direction. Our country and our state, there's an undercurrent that people aren't seeing, and, we need to stop it and, get out and vote.
Yeah, it's super important. And it's easy to vote. Just vote. Yes. Just get out and vote and do your research on your candidate and take a day on your weekend and just study as much as possible.
Right, exactly.
And vote. Just vote. Doesn't matter. Just vote.
if I can mention something, and also people, what they're doing is that they're having like some small voting get-togethers, and they just kind of get together and talk about who the candidates are and what they're about. So that's also a good thing, because some people don't
To educate themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Some people don't really know who to vote for, and if you come in a group and they just kind of discuss issues, and that's also another way, to get people out to vote. And then you can also, if you don't want to vote, or excuse me, you can't get out there, you can also give your ballot. For example, my son, he's going to give me his vote. He's going to come, over, and we're going to discuss, who to vote for, whatnot. And, just if he doesn't want to go because he has to work, so I'm going to take his, his ballot, and of course he's going to sign it. But, that's another way you can do it too. If you don't want to just give it to your family member and they can take it in, that's also another good way.
Yeah, just get a vote in.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Claudia. I think we covered everything. One more time, your website.
ClaudiaForSenate.ca.com. And again, that's Claudia, the word for, SenateCA.com. And that's across the board for my Facebook page, same extension, and also for Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you for having me. This was a great show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mention what you were talking about right now, that we just... Prop 47?
Yes. So Prop 47 is one that was brought up by George Gascon, and also the woman who won our seat for city council member, Eunice Hernandez. It is the one for letting out repeat offenders. And that's why we've seen this crime rate of, all these people that keep getting out and just they're being released without any consequences. And that's why we have all this crime of people just going into stores and, taking up to $950. For anything. And that's why it is important to know that this is what has let all these criminals out, and that we have all this high crime and just everything. There's no consequences.
There's zero consequences.
Yes.
Is that temporary, or is that like...
No,
that's permanent right now?
It's already passed, yes. And we're...
Even though COVID's done and...
Yes, exactly. And that's why, we're seeing this, and it's not benefiting anybody, because it's benefiting actually the criminals, because they're not, being held accountable. So there's essentially a revolving door, and then having these kind of people that are going into office, it's concerning, because, we're trying to get, people that are for safety and, more police and just protection. But Prop 47, when we have these criminals that are letting out, without consequences, it defeats the purpose, Yeah,
it defeats the purpose 100%. And
yes.
Once they figure it out, they're like, that's it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's why, that's why you see them being so brazen. They go into stores and they just bring their the trash bags or whatnot, and they just, let them out the door. And they know that the security guards aren't going to do anything. And then once the police come, they're already gone.
What's happening in the jails and in the prison system? Are they fully packed, or are they not? Because they were also letting people, it's like they're not taking anybody in. And then they were also letting people out during COVID.
Yes.
Which I heard they would, if somebody was infected with COVID, as they would like take him out of the jail, he would like spit in somebody's cup, and then that person would drink it, and then that person had COVID, and they would just, like this was a big thing, that they were exposing. But then it's like, hey, rules are rules. Yes. We can't have anybody that has the COVID virus here.
Exactly.
So they release them. So what is the current status of the prisons and the jails? Are they overpacked right now?
I'm not certain, to be quite honest, but I do understand. I do know that they were having the zero bail, and I think that already lifted. So I think that they're making it where they're spending time in jails now. But with Prop 47, it doesn't matter, because they're still going to let them out. Whether
they'll continue what's
yes, exactly. So having that in law, we need to overturn that. But when we have a council member that is very proud of that, it's terrible, because that's what we voted in, so that's why it's important that people vote, because this is who you voted in.
Yeah. Wow. It's incredible how we overlook this and not realize how impactful our votes are.
Yes, exactly. And, that's why, you can see people that are for the community and everything, that's fine. But, and at the end of the day, do you want to risk your children's life, your, community members' lives? It's important to have some kind of law and order. I mean, just where it impacts everybody, our middle class income, low income families, and, high crime rate for everyone, I don't know if you saw, but there was some kind of a report where the police went and said, don't come to California for our tourists even. And it's like, do you really want to have that message out there? Like, we thrive on California with our, especially Los Angeles with our tourists, and that's something that I want back into our city. We want to make sure that our tourists,
it helps small businesses, it helps the community, it helps the city.
And when you're giving that message out, don't come to California, we're not going to protect you, and have Prop 47 out there, and it's like, how is that going to help us with our community dollars and our tourism? And this is something that we need to rethink and put that out there. We need to get rid of these kind of bills.
Yeah, it's wild. I have the Citizen app. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I do.
That thing goes off
yes
all the time. I mean, yesterday, like I said, there was a armed assault, across the river. At the same time, there was a hit and run on the big main streets over here.
Right.
An hour before that, somebody crushed a motorcycle, and they said it was very bad. There was 2 stabbings. And this is within like 4 hours here.
Oh my gosh.
Here. And I was like, man, can you imagine like some of the neighborhoods in LA,
right. Exactly.
what they're going through?
Exactly.
Like armed assault, robbery, hit and run, pedestrian struck, motorcyclist struck. And this is every day.
Yes, exactly.
This is it looks fake. It almost looks like, yeah, right, not again.
Right, it's almost like a movie.
It's almost like a movie.
It's terrible. And the same.
And you can't even write a movie that has this much.
No, it is. It's just awful. And then back to all this crime that's happening. And that's the reason. The same thing with like Prop 47. Like myself, that's why I have got myself a firearm, because talking to the police, I actually ended up speaking to my local police department, to the crime gang unit as well, because I was asking them, I don't think I feel safe, with all this crime happening throughout the city, and, I told them, I was considering getting a firearm, and, they said, well, Claudia, just so you know, we arrested some guy who shot his girlfriend in the face. I forget it multiple times, but they ended up, during COVID, they ended up, taking him in and just, booking him, but then they left, they let him leave. And it's like, that's what we've been doing for the couple, 2 years or so. Yeah. I think now perhaps, they're letting them in there, but it's because, they were letting them out so freely that it's like, that's why it's important for people, to get themselves, firearm protection and, get that training.
Yeah. A question, does this department deal with anything with mental health?
For which one? For the state senate?
Yeah, like the state senate.
Right.
Do you guys deal with mental health a lot?
I would think that we can, bring into law and, bring a bill where we would want that for, get some kind of help for, people in our cities that are suffering, that some kind of programs, for them to be able to get that assistance and, possible for the housing as well. That's something that we can do, is put it into, to bring a bill and, make it something that it's urgent as well. Because that's obviously, we see that throughout the city. It's not just Los Angeles, through the whole nation. Exactly.
I think that's the biggest issue that we have, this domestic violence, this gun violence, these shootings, these mass shootings. It's all, a mental health issue.
Mental health, exactly. And we want to make sure to clear that too, because we do have law-abiding citizens, that we do have our, it's very difficult in California. I mean, this. It's just to get a firearm. So, when people say that, we have firearms, but you have to remember, we do have those criminals that don't get that background check, and they don't have any source, any concern for legal, ratifications. They just go and get them in the street, whatnot. But,
Yeah, I think the best example is Chicago. Chicago has the strictest gun laws in the United States, and they have more gun violence than any other state, period.
I think it's because they're making it difficult for law-abiding citizens to be able to attain those.
Not only law-abiding citizens, but they're making it difficult for small businesses and people in their own properties. They're making it impossible. So we know it doesn't work. Yes. Why keep forcing it? Especially in a city that has, how big is LA? The population now?
Oh my gosh, it's
what, I think it's like 10 million or 15 million or something like that. It's a ridiculous amount of number. I mean, you could just tell just by our traffic.
Yes.
And the police can't do it all.
Right.
especially with these circumstances they have, and especially with the madness that's going on.
Right.
We need a change.
Right. And I'll tell you something also. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they were making it so the sheriff could give out the CCWs, and was going through the city council, and they made an emergency where they're trying to stop that. And when the crime is the
so
highest.
they passed the CCW now?
No, they stalled it.
They stalled
They
it.
had stalled it. I'm not sure.
So they
if
were going to work to do it, and then they stalled.
I believe it's still there, but they were making it, for law-abiding citizens to make sure to get their CCWs. And the sheriff was, he said, turn in your applications, and we'll be reviewing them. And this is during the time, when it's been, currently where, there's been a lot of high crimes with like holdups and everyone just getting assaulted left and right. And the city council, they put it on their agenda to stall it. And then not only that, but Governor Newsom, the same thing. He made it so, it's trying to make it so it's not easy for anybody in California. And it's like, how is it they're trying to, stop law-abiding citizens, yet the criminals, they don't have any of these problems. That's not right that they're doing this. And that's why, we need to make sure, again, vote and get, our state assembly and senators, legislation that are, pro Second Amendment right, for the rights of people. That's why we have that in law and in our Constitution to protect ourselves, not only for criminals, but also for our government, and it's a right for us to be able to have some.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Thank you for going over that.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Claudia, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Of course.